JoyNPR.org, optimized for the iPad. This is NPR.
And your member station is WNYC. I'm Richard Hake. Good afternoon. It's 4:18. The Labor Department has issued a memo for employers to determine who can be considered an independent contractor as opposed to an employee.
What is new, really, is the tagline, and that's what the DOL is pushing. And that tagline is, quote, most workers are employees, end quote.
The guidelines are designed to cut back on so-called worker misclassification. More on this coming up.
WNYC support comes from the Intrepid Sea, Air and Space Museum, hosting the Space and Science Festival, a 4-day celebration of science, art, and innovation, July 23rd through 26th. More information is available at intrepidmuseum.org. WNYC is a media partner of the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, presenting a lecture series by Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. December 2nd, Dr. Tyson will talk about sci-fi movies to separate science fact from science fiction. Details at njpac.org. When you're a funeral director, feeling burned out at work can be very dark.
Nobody ever told me that it's going to affect you negatively and that you're going to have to learn to cope. There is very little training at all.
I'm Anna Sale, host of Death, Sex, and Money. This week, how a mortician struggling with depression has managed to find beauty in his job. Hear it and subscribe at deathsexmoney.org.
Stay with WNYC later tonight on Studio 360. Kurt Anderson will talk with actor Sir Ian McKellen about his latest role, one of the original superheroes, Sherlock Holmes. That's tonight at 8 o'clock on 93.9 FM. On AM 820, On Point, we'll look at the science and risks involved in cholesterol-lowering statins. That's tonight at 8 o'clock on AM 820. Mostly clear skies tonight, lows expected in the mid-60s. Tomorrow, Friday, sunshine, highs in the lower 80s. There's a chance of showers on both Saturday and Sunday. Otherwise, it'll be partly sunny and more humid. This is WNYC.
Support for NPR comes from member stations and from Carnegie Corporation of New York, supporting innovations in education, democratic engagement, and the advancement of international peace and security. More information is available online at carnegie.org. And A24, presenting Amy, a documentary about singer Amy Winehouse, an international star who lived her life in front of the camera and disappeared in front of our eyes, now playing everywhere.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Robert Siegel.
And I'm Audie Cornish. If you like spreadsheets and politics, well, last night may as well have been Christmas. It was the deadline for presidential campaigns to file their first batch of fundraising numbers with the Federal Election Commission. We'll start our look at the numbers on the Republican side. Here's NPR's Don Gagné.
Right now, Jeb Bush has the biggest pot of gold in the GOP field. Some $11 million he's raised on his own, plus a super PAC backing him that's collected more than $100 million. Bush's money is coming from big fundraising events and big donors. Having lots of cash can be a big advantage, but as Bush himself said at a candidate forum a few months back, he hasn't exactly scared away the competition. Bush joked that there are like 95 candidates in the field.
By any stretch of the imagination.
I don't see any coronation coming my way, Trump.
Well, you know.
Well behind Bush, but still with plenty of money, are U.S. Senators Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. Each of their campaigns has raised millions, and each has a super PAC that has brought in a far greater amount. The overall tally for Cruz tops $52 million, for Rubio, more than $40 million. Of course, past elections provide plenty of evidence that cash doesn't guarantee success. Retired neurosurgeon Ben Carson has raised more than $10 million with no super PAC help at this point. Carson and Cruz have spent a lot of money to raise a lot of money, phone calls, emails, and direct mail. Nancy Bosker is a veteran fundraiser who now teaches at George Washington University.
In direct mail, there's always a larger startup cost because you're doing list acquisition, printing of envelopes, just setting the machinery in place, looking for those few nuggets.
Those nuggets, she says, are hard to find, but
once I know somebody has given $25, chances are they're going to give $25 again and again and again.
Much of the huge GOP field is still struggling to raise cash. Then there's Donald Trump. Put him in his own category. He's raised practically nothing, but, well, there's this.
I don't need anybody's money. I'm using my own money. I'm not using the lobbyists. I'm not using donors. I don't care. I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second.
And no matter how much candidates raise individually, these latest numbers make clear Super PAC money will play a huge role and perhaps have an outsized impact. Don Gagne, NPR News.
And I'm Tamara Keith. When it comes to the Democrats, there are only two candidates who have raised more than $10 million. And both Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders are talking about their small donations. That's because those little checks and credit card payments of $5 here, $50 there serve as a proxy for grassroots support and energy.
Get a quick picture with him.
On a recent Sunday in Iowa, I watched as Sanders, the Vermont senator, shook hands and took pictures with supporters. And then this happened.
And here's a check for your pocket.
Oh, thank you very much. But you didn't have to.
That's right. She slipped a folded personal check into Sanders' pocket as they posed for a photo. I don't know how much it was for, but it's safe to assume it wasn't much. 76% of his donations came from people giving $200 or less. Sanders raised just over $15 million total, putting him ahead of all but one Republican candidate. But when it comes to campaign cash, there's only one Hillary Clinton. She raised more than $47 million in the first months of her campaign, in large part thanks to a relentless fundraising schedule. Take June 29th. She attended 3 big dollar fundraisers, including one at the home of New Jersey rocker Jon Bon Jovi. Clinton raised $750,000 that day, but her campaign is trying to play up the sheer number of small donations that came in too, including merchandise purchases.
Hats, buttons, magnets, cups, all proceeds support the important work of this campaign.
That was campaign manager Robbie Mook hawking merch at Clinton's campaign kickoff rally last month. Each hat and beer koozie counts as a campaign contribution, though when you add it all up, less than 20% of Clinton's campaign cash came in the form of small donations. Tamara Keith, NPR News, Washington.
The Labor Department has issued a memo, and that doesn't sound very exciting, but this memo could mean big changes for some workers. It includes a set of standards for employers to follow in order to decide who is an employee and who is an independent contractor. Guidance designed to cut back on what the Labor Department calls worker misclassification. NPR's Yuki Noguchi reports.
When Labor Department officials issued this memo, they were thinking about the experiences of people like Alex Paz.
I'm right here picking up a load right now.
I catch Paz as he's loading his truck at a California port. Until the spring, he was considered an independent contractor. He had paid for fuel and registration of a truck, but the truck itself was owned by the trucking company. Some months after the company deducted his costs, he ended up owing the company money. Did you feel like you were working for yourself?
Nah, I didn't feel like I was working for myself.
Under pressure from Paz and the Teamsters Union, the company reclassified him as an employee.
It's a lot better because now, you know what I mean, now you get paid, you know you're an employee.
David Weil is the administrator of the Labor Department's Wage and Hour Division and author of the memo.
This is the bedrock on which all of our labor standards are built on, is the employment relationship.
Weil says misclassification is a top priority for the Labor Department because non-employees aren't covered by various workplace regulations such as overtime, occupational safety, unemployment insurance, and the like. The abuse of independent contractor status, he says, has been on the rise, and not just in industries like construction and janitorial work, where it has long been an issue.
But of particular concern, we find it spreading into industries where in the past it hasn't been a problem.
Such as hotels, distribution, restaurants, and retailing. Weil says he based the guidelines on precedent established by court decisions, looking at things like compensation structure, the length of the contract, and how much independence the worker has in setting schedule. Most businesses don't take advantage of their contractors, and Weil says they will be helped by clearer guidelines.
I think it also benefits employers who are already doing the right thing, who are really undermined by employers who come in and do misclassification.
But Jeff Ruzal disagrees. Ruzal is an attorney representing employers.
What is new, really, is the tagline. And that's what the DOL is pushing. And that tagline is, quote, most workers are employees, end quote.
Rizal says he's advising clients to audit their contractor base and either make adjustments to payrolls or shorten contracts. Another concern is that labor activists and employees will use these new guidelines to go after deep-pocketed businesses.
I think the plaintiff's bar is going to seize on this interpretation, try to spin it as something new, and use it to gain traction with the courts to otherwise push a greater amount of lawsuits.
Richard Alfred is another employment attorney representing employers. To him, the memo carries a larger message.
The administrator has expressed the Wage and Hour Division's hostility to the use of independent contractors by employers.
He says many clients are still digesting the memo and aren't yet clear on how they will react. Yuki Noguchi, NPR News, Washington.
It's All Things Considered on WNYC. I'm Richard Hake. A gunman opened fire this morning at 2 military centers in Tennessee, killing 4 people.
Today is a nightmare for the city of Chattanooga. We had someone viciously attack people who proudly serve our country.
The suspected shooter is also dead. We'll get the latest coming up on All Things Considered here on WNYC. Clear skies tonight, lows will be in the mid-60s. Tomorrow, Friday, sunny, highs in the lower 80s, and then there's a chance of showers on Saturday.
On the next Brian Lehrer Show, New Yorker writer Malcolm Gladwell talks about the education rat race, in which college-bound students go all out to attend the most prestigious school they can get into, and why they might be better off elsewhere.
In the absence of the kind of overwhelming competition that exists at Ivy League schools, you have a chance to get an education.
The Brian Lehrer Show, weekdays at 10 a.m. on WNYC.
WNYC receives support from Lincoln Center's Mostly Mozart Festival, featuring the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra, the Emerson String Quartet, late-night concerts, and more, July 25th through August 22nd. Tickets at mostlymozart.org. Geico, offering car insurance as well as services for homeowners and renters insurance through the Geico Insurance Agency. Additional information can be found at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO.
At WNYC, we love NPR News as much as you do. That's why we bring it to you every day.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Nancy Lyons. 4 Marines are dead, along with the gunman, following a shooting attack on 2 military facilities in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It started with shots fired at a recruiting center. Then authorities say the suspect drove 6 miles away and continued shooting at the Navy Operations Support Center and Marine Corps Reserve Center. Police Chief Fred Fletcher says it happened fast, but they reacted fast as well.
Somebody brutally and brazenly attacked members of our armed services, and that officers of the Chattanooga Police Department and the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office responded immediately, and they were able to make sure that no further loss of life happened.
Authorities have identified the shooter as Mohammed Abdul Aziz. Investigators are unsure of his motive. In addition to those killed, Marine officials are confirming 1 Marine Corps recruiter suffered a wound to the leg and was treated and released from a local hospital. After deliberating for a day and a half, jurors have reached a decision in the trial of accused Colorado theater shooter James Holmes. The verdict is expected to be read in about an hour and a half. Holmes pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity in the 2012 shootings that killed 12 and wounded 70 others. His attorneys say he was in the grips of a psychotic episode, while prosecutors say he understood right from wrong. President Obama is making history today. He became the first sitting president to visit a federal prison. He went to the El Reno Federal Correctional Institution as part of his push for a reassessment of prison sentences.
We have to reconsider whether 20-year, 30-year life sentences for nonviolent crimes is the best way for us to solve these problems.
Earlier this week, he commuted the sentences of nearly 4 dozen nonviolent drug offenders, saying their punishment did not fit their crime. On Wall Street today, a record for the NASDAQ. It gained 64 to reach 5163. The Dow added 70. The S&P added 16. This is NPR.